11 in the morning, Pacific Time, October 19th, 1987. On an upper floor in Los Angeles, a trader sits with a telephone receiver in each hand, selling as fast as 2 phone lines allow. He looks up at the man standing over his desk. "I'm getting behind," he says. To keep up, he needs to sell harder into Chicago. Then he adds the sentence that hangs over this whole story. "But I think the market would go to zero if I did that." And the man standing over the desk, the man who invented the strategy the trader is executing, hears his own creation described as a doomsday machine and says, "No, don't do that." By the closing bell that day, the Dow Jones Industrial Average had fallen 508 points, 22.6%. Gone in 6.5 hours. The worst day in 1929, the crash that opened the Great Depression, never came near it. What happened on Black Monday was not a war, not a bank failure, not a president shot. It was an idea, working exactly as designed. This is the biography of that idea. It was born at Berkeley in 1976, in the mind of a young finance professor named Hayne Leland. The idea was beautiful. Insurance for a portfolio. When the market fell a little, you would sell a small slice of your holdings. If it fell further, you would sell more. If it recovered, you would buy back in. Follow the recipe mechanically, and no crash could ever hurt you deeply. A computer could run it. Leland took the mathematics to a colleague named Mark Rubenstein, one of the most careful minds in finance, and Rubenstein checked it and found it sound. A born salesman named John O'Brien joined them, and the three put their names on a firm and began to sell certainty. At first, nobody called. Leland gave his talks in 1979, went home, and, as he wrote later, eagerly waited for the phone to ring. It never did, and then it rang for 8 years. By October of 1987, somewhere between $60 and $90 billion of American stocks sat under portfolio insurance. Pension funds bought it the way families buy seatbelts. The professors had become quietly the largest automatic sellers on the planet, waiting for a signal. There was one catch, and it was visible from the very first day. The insurance was made of selling. It protected you by selling because prices fell, and its selling made prices fall. For one fund, that is a seatbelt. For a whole market, it is a crowd sprinting for a single door, where every shove makes the next shove harder. Leland saw it immediately. "From the very first day I thought of portfolio insurance," he said later. I asked, "Well, what if everyone tries to do it?" I didn't like the answer I came up with. The warnings arrived on schedule. In September of 1986, the market lurched, and Rubenstein privately concluded that the culprit was his own product. He told regulators. He did not publish. For the first time in my career, he admitted afterward, I had a conflict of interests. I didn't want to stick my neck out and do a thing that would have hurt the business. By June of '87, Leland was telling audiences that a 3% drop could double the volume of the New York Stock Exchange. O'Brien put it more simply, we could shut our doors, but that wasn't going to stop anything. The trigger week came in the middle of October. Trade deficits, a tax bill aimed at takeovers, rising interest rates. The market slid all week, and on Friday, the Dow fell 108 points, the largest one-day point drop it had ever suffered. That mattered for a mechanical reason. The insurance recipes reacted to Friday's damage with Monday orders. All weekend, inside the computers, the sell instructions accumulated like water behind a door. The machines came into Monday already committed to selling on a scale no one had ever attempted. Monday arrived with the sun. Hong Kong crashed first, down 11%. London followed, down nearly the same. By the time New York opened, sell orders had piled so deep that at 10 o'clock, 95 stocks in the Standard & Poor's Index, nearly a third of its value, had not yet traded a single share. The tape ran more than an hour behind. A dealer told investigators his phone board looked like a disco, every light flashing all day long. Before the open, the exchange's chairman, John Phelan, warned a colleague in Chicago, "We're seeing sell orders like never before. It looks like a very bad market." And through it all, the recipes did what recipes do. On that single day, a handful of insurance programs unloaded roughly $2 billion of stock in New York and nearly $3 billion more through the futures pits in Chicago, around 40% of all the selling pressure there. One institution alone sold $1 billion, in 13 even slices of about 100 million each, spaced through the day like a metronome. No fear, no judgment, no pause. Prices fell, so the machines sold. The machines sold, so prices fell. The inventors spent the day chasing their own invention. Leland boarded a 6:30 flight to Los Angeles. Over the aisle came the announcement that the market was down 60 points. Serious, he thought, but less than catastrophic. In the taxi, he asked the driver to turn on the stock report. "Oh God," was all he said. O'Brien heard it on a car radio driving down from the mountains and called the office from a roadside payphone. And at 11, in that upstairs office, a trader with a receiver in each hand told Leland the market would go to zero if he kept following the recipe. And the inventor of portfolio insurance ordered his own firm to stop insuring. By day's end, the Dow had lost more than a fifth of its value. 604 million shares, double the busiest day ever seen. 69 days. That is how long Alan Greenspan had been chairman of the Federal Reserve. That afternoon, he was in the air on a flight to Dallas, unreachable, while the bottom fell out. When he landed, he asked how the market had finished. "It was down 508, came the answer, and for one merciful second, the new chairman relaxed. 5.08. A quiet day. Then he saw the man's face. That evening, John Phelan reached for a word the stock market had never used about itself. It was, he said, the nearest thing to a financial meltdown that I ever want to see. But Monday was only the fall. The near death came Tuesday. The official report said it plainly. It was midday Tuesday that the securities markets and the financial system approached breakdown. Overnight, $2.5 billion in margin payments had to move through Chicago's clearinghouse. By dawn, 400 million of it was missing, and without it, the exchange could not open. At 13 minutes past 7, Chicago time, the exchange's chairman, Leo Melamed, had a banker named Wilma Smelser on the line. "Wilma," he pleaded, "you're not going to let a couple of $100 million cause the Merc to go down the tubes, are you?" "Leo, my hands are tied." Then in the background, her chairman walked into the room. A moment later, she was back. "Leo, we're okay. Tom said to go ahead. You've got your money." The market opened on time. They had 3 minutes to spare. In Washington, a small group at the Federal Reserve had spent the night drafting statements. The long versions, full of conditions and mechanics, were thrown away. What the new chairman released before the opening bell was a single sentence. The Federal Reserve, consistent with its responsibilities as the nation's central bank, affirmed today its readiness to serve as a source of liquidity to support the economic and financial system. One sentence. A trader later called it the most calming thing said all day. It was almost not enough. By midday Tuesday, banks were backing away from Wall Street, buyers had vanished, and the options and futures markets in Chicago halted one after another. Inside the New York Stock Exchange, officials discussed the unthinkable, closing the doors. The financier Felix Rohatyn said it out loud afterward. Tuesday was the most dangerous day we had in 50 years. I think we came within an hour, and then around midday, the tide turned. With the future's screens dark, the loudest billboard of despair went blank. Corporations announced they would buy back their own shares. Buyers crept in. The system held by fingertips. The bill came due everywhere. The exchange's floor dealers had burned through 2/3 of their capital in a single day. One 60-year-old firm that had survived 1929 was sold by handshake in the middle of Monday night. Hong Kong simply locked its doors for 4 days, and when it reopened, it fell by a third in a single session. And in Los Angeles, the men who had invented the machine answered reporters' calls and then went quiet. Mark Rubenstein sank into what he later called 2 weeks of clinical depression, gripped by a fear he could not shake, that a weakened America might invite a challenge from the Soviet Union, that his elegant recipe had made nuclear war more likely. It was as if, he said, Pandora's box had been opened. The verdict arrived in January, bound in a report by a commission under Nicholas Brady. Its language was bloodless and devastating. The decline was ignited by mechanical, price-insensitive selling by institutions following portfolio insurance strategies. Portfolio insurance, as a business, withered. The exchanges installed circuit breakers, forced pauses written into the rules, so that the next time the machines stampeded, the market could catch its breath by law. The Federal Reserve's one sentence grew into a doctrine, the famous Greenspan put, the faith that the central bank will always catch a falling market. We are still living inside its consequences. The machines never left. They multiplied, and today they trade faster and hold more of the market than the professors could have imagined, watched over by a new generation of central bankers, each hoping their first storm comes late. Hayne Leland asked the right question on the very first day. What if everyone tries to do it? Black Monday was the market answering him. The insurance worked exactly as designed. That was the catastrophe. The Brady Commission signed its verdict in January of 1988, but the Postmortem writes itself. The only question is whether anyone reads it before the next one.